You know, as an American, my understanding of Belarus really goes back to the time of the breakup of the Soviet Union, and so it's I knew, of course, there were cosmonauts who came from here. I knew that it was a scientific and technologically oriented state, but much more of the detail of the country was not known to me. Every year, we take about 100 astronauts and cosmonauts from all over the world, and there's only been 500 in history, so it's a significant fraction of all that have existed. And we travel to a new city. And this year, in fact last year, it was the Belarusian cosmonauts that invited us to come here. And so we can thank them for the idea and the invitation. And it's been great to, when we come here for a Congress, we usually do about 4 days of technical discussions where the space programs of each country present what they're doing, where we bring people working at the cutting edge of satellites or scientific research, and they present what they're doing to each other as well as to the general public. And then on one day, today, Wednesday, we do what we call Community Day, where as opposed to being together at a university setting, we spread out. And 2 or 3 of us at a time travel as far as we can across the country in order to share our experiences as broadly as we can. Yeah, I as an entrepreneur and as a collector, I have a background in video games. So with my background in video games, which I've earned money, I have invested that money throughout my career in kind of opening commercial spaceflight, popularizing and looking for those kind of opportunities for expanding what we can do in space, but including collecting some things on the side. Well, I actually think that there's better odds I'll get a chance to go to Mars than the moon. My largest investment, the largest investment that my wife and I have made, is in SpaceX, and I hope that turns into eventually a trip to Mars. So we'll see, but I'm quite hopeful. So, and if SpaceX does not get to Mars, then maybe the moon will be a good target. So perhaps. I knew I would enjoy the flight. I mean, that's the reason I spent a lot of time in pursuit of it. So I expected to appreciate it. What I didn't honestly expect was how life-changing it would be. I mean, I consider myself an explorer, and I've already been to the poles, to the deep sea, down to the Titanic, and all over all these continents, and so I knew space would be great, but I did not expect it to be life-changing, but it was. It's actually quite profound, I believe, how transformative it is to spend some time in orbit. And I think it's important to go to orbit, not just a suborbital flight where you go up and back down, which I think will be more common also in the future. But if you go all the way to orbit, you get a chance to really observe the Earth in great detail, and it is captivating. You are compelled to continue to watch what is happening on the surface of the Earth, and you really feel quite changed by it. You feel like you have now an intimate connection with the surface of the Earth that you never had before.
So you enjoyed the flight, and how was the landing on the Soyuz?
Actually, what's funny is I've heard some people describe it as pretty rough. It is in fact like a car crash, but you're strapped in very well. The seat liner that you're sitting in is formed literally to your body, and there are pistons that can be crushed underneath your seat. And so I found it, it was eye-opening. You will not miss it. It is an amazing whack, but it didn't hurt in any way. It's just shocking. Well, first of all, I would say don't underestimate what Belarus can do. I mean, you already are building satellites. Even NASA's satellites don't go on their own boosters. They buy commercial boosters to put their satellites up on Mars. And so you should not be at all concerned that you have to buy a rocket from some source, because there's plenty of them that are available. And frankly, I would even say if Belarus wanted to, they could build their own rockets. By the way, I don't think you need to, but by the way, SpaceX as a company is much smaller than the economic productivity of Belarus, the country. And so you could, if you wanted to, build a rocket because you're bigger than SpaceX. And so, but again, I don't think you need to. You have your own cosmonauts, you have your own satellites, And I think that for any of the people down here today, for example, who are entrepreneurs or might think that, hey, I want to go myself, I would use me as an example and go, look, I did it. It took me a few decades to do it, but the price of access is coming down. The size of hardware is becoming smaller. The opportunities are becoming greater. And so I think anyone in Belarus who goes, I really want to go, or I want to start a business that does data collection or data science or provides important information to farmers or resource exploration, they can do that from Belarus just as easily as they can from any other place on Earth. I believe so, and that's because I believe that we will get to Mars in my lifetime, which ought to be within your lifetime. So I think it's going to be more than 10 years out. So I think it's probably 20 years out, I would be very sad if it was 30 years out. But unquestionably will happen within your lifetime.